Psychologists of Reddit, what made you realize you were treating a psychopath? When I was a student, we had an interview with a lady that killed her baby child with a handgun because it cried so much that she couldn't take it. At first we weren't told that she was a psychopath, and we were just told to listen to her side of the story. She was reading us from her journal that she made while she was in the institution. Not once did she mention that she was sad that her baby died, or how what she did was bad. She was just reading angry thoughts about her husband that left her and turned her in the police about what she did. She was justifying the killing because the baby was so unbearable, and once she mentioned that she was angry and mad that her husband did not believe her that she didn't have any other choice but to kill the baby. She was very smart and well spoken, and the whole time she was speaking she was trying to make us feel sorry for her for being locked up. We later learned that sometimes she was lying about not killing her baby and other times just brag about it, depending on who she was speaking with. Very normal looking person and very good speaker. Very normal looking person. This always makes me think about how many people like this I have interacted with up to this point in my life. Watch the Netflix movie The Inventor, Out for Blood in Silicon Valley. That person is nuts. When telling that he kept thinking about how killing people would be more fun than lame animals, stray cats and dogs and everything else he could catch. Only 11 years old, my mum worked with a boy, 12-13 at the time, who had killed animals. He'd raped a sheep then cut its throat. He'd molested his younger brother. He was big for his age and wouldn't be allowed to be alone with female staff because he would always try to manipulate them and test his strength against them in subtle ways, i.e., he'd try to hug them but squeeze to see if they were strong enough to get out of it. They would often find drawings in his room of women tied up and mutilated. He wasn't allowed human-like toys anymore because he'd always destroy them, hang them, tie them up. The staff have all said it's only a matter of time before he actually kills a human, and at present there's nothing they can do about it because when he hits 16 he'll no longer be in their care. They had a certain degree of sympathy for him due to his upbringing. His mother was a junkie and would often sell him and his brother to pedophiles. They'd pick the boys up in a car, take them away, abuse them and then bring them back to her. Disgusting. One of my biggest regrets in life is suggesting to my middle school age niece, many years ago, that she would be an excellent psychologist and she would be able to help people that no one wanted to help. After listening to years of her stories about the unimaginable horrors these children suffered, and all the times she was hurt, beat up, by the children in the hospital, I'm so glad she took an alternative path so she doesn't have to deal with all of that misery anymore. It's not good for you. God bless the people who are strong enough to keep helping people with mental illnesses. God will reward you. Children is the hardest area to work in this field. Current psychologist working in a maximum security prison. Here I've worked with 3 individuals I dare say would have met the criteria for antisocial personality disorder within the last 2 weeks. One commonality is that they use behaviors as tools to benefit only themselves. Self-harm not because they wish to hurt themselves but to use it as a tool to lure staff into the cell to incite violence, gain extra medication, be sent to the SHU which comes with a status boost. One person offered to get me a comfortable chair when we were in a session, not for my benefit but so that they could ensure I stuck around for longer to talk with them. A lot of positive impression management also. Sometimes you feel they care but there's unfortunately an ulterior motive. If he was lonely and wanted someone to talk to, is it really sinister that he would get you a chair so you would hang around longer? Just seems like something anyone might do. For sure. This is just a small example of manipulation and impression management. Impression management, I have never heard that term before, but it describes my exes, perfectly. Do I put out a vibe that attracts these people? You might. I do. As verified by a guy with admitted ASPD. I asked him some questions about it, and he said he could sense that I had the sort of personality he could usually manipulate. I'd had a recent near miss so was on high alert, and when I described the other guy's behavior he agreed and explained the rationale behind it to me, mostly flattery and subtle forced teaming. It was fascinating and I would have liked to keep talking to him to learn more. At the same time I felt really unsafe and as though he was still flattering me in the same way as the other guy. He was just doing it with the knowledge that I knew what I was dealing with. I think on some level he was experimenting to see if he could still reel me in. That and when he was describing how he murdered 2 kids, he had no affect, didn't name them, justified his actions as not serious, etc. Took a few sessions to acknowledge the murder of the second child. He was in denial, assuming I wouldn't like him if I knew he killed the other one too. Clinical psychologist here. At first I didn't know. If anything, given the context, he was more put together than most of my patients. The subject of his criminal past came up. I only knew he had served prison time some years before, not what he was in for. I had met with him a month or two when this came up. Turns out it was 2 separate sentences served. Both were for rape. In both cases he was the exact thing we are afraid of, a guy lurking in a dark alley jumping a drunk girl. He told me about these things as if he was talking about the weather. When it dawned on me that he expressed no remorse or guilt whatsoever, I got the same cold, gut-wrenching kind of primal fear you feel when you're out for a walk and almost step on snake. Not a psych, but I was in the room where my mum was being evaluated. Well, I wasn't in the room. It was like a police interrogation room with a one-way glass. I was there because they needed to interview me for an outsider's perspective. Anyways, my mum got arrested on suspicion to commit a violent crime. To set the scene, she was handcuffed to a table and she was pissed. She's always had volatile anger issues due to heavy drug and alcohol use. She was being talked to, questioned, all this other stuff. I was there for about 3 hours. She kept running this lady in circles to divert her from the actual problem. She was insanely calm, answering questions about various things that would scare a normal person. She barely showed empathy for anything and it was terrifying for me to watch. I knew she wasn't right in the head anyways. She was abusive to both my brother and I, but seeing how she handled the situation at hand, I'm glad I got out of there or it would have gotten much worse. I haven't talked to her in about 4 years, but she's tried to get in contact. I can't trust her and don't think I ever will again. Psychopaths be in here taking notes on how to not get caught. Plot twist. It was a psychopath who wrote the question in the first place. Twist. It was you. Ultimate twist. I am the psychopath. Ultimate twist. You weren't joking. Really? Ultimate twist. We are all psychopaths. Not a psychologist, but a nurse who sees way too many psych cases. One time I had a PT who was brought in after trying to break into a family's house while they were home. He was on my telemetry unit because his electrolytes were out of whack and he was acting like he didn't remember trying to bust into an entire family's house with them home. He was getting antsy, but the hospital I worked at had a stupid full risk policy that kept patients in bed, even if they were young, healthy, capable of being responsible for their full mental health. Patients like to pace, especially when they start to feel like they're using it. So, anyway, I'm trying to keep dude in bed because if his feet touched the floor a loud alarm would go off, pushing his crazy ass closer to the edge. So, I'm in there trying to talk to him and de-escalate. We're talking and he tells me he is a bad person, that his cat was mutilated and his sister asked what happened to it and he told her the dog did it. But he told me that his secret is that he did it. He killed the cat so bad that it looked like a dog ripped it to pieces. He also shared with me that he knew what he was doing when he tried breaking into the family's home, and that he wants to hurt people. Of course, I shared this info with the hospitalist and the psychologist, and, naturally, he was discharged free and clear the next day. No follow-up with the law or outpatient psych. Gotta love it. I'm awake at 5 AM reading this now. I won't get any sleep thanks for that. I just double checked all my windows and doors. Thanks for watching. PLZ like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day.